Hey everyone. So I'm back with the fourth part of Dorothy's story. And we pick up back in the private waiting area that we had been put into. She's now coded a total of 5 times. And we were later told about something that occurred in there after that. She had had an artery that was torn during their efforts to save her life. It was her femoral artery. A vascular surgeon was called in, and he later told us about the horrific scene that he walked into. They were in the middle of trying to save her life. At the same time, she's bleeding profusely, and he's now trying to repair this artery. And then code blue for the sixth time. He told us about one of the cath lab technologists was actually sitting over her doing chest compressions, and that every time a compression was applied, more blood came from that artery. And he was having a very difficult time trying to repair it. Meanwhile, back in the waiting area, we all heard the sixth call, and we wondered how much longer could this happen? Could this go on? Why is this happening? The doctor walks in. We all looked at him, and we all knew from the look on his face what he was about to say. He looks straight at me and he says, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We did everything we could possibly do to save your wife, but she didn't make it. I was holding my daughters and we went to the floor and they were crying and screaming. Everyone in the room was crying. And then the door swings open, and it's one of the nurses from the cath lab. And she's saying, no, no, wait. She's got a pulse. Everybody, it's like, what just happened? What's going on? The doctors, without a word, ran out the door back to the cath lab. Later, he would return and he would say, we're taking your wife up to ICU. We've done everything that we can in there. I'll meet you up there. I walked beside her stretcher, watched them place her in that room. And then soon after, the doctor and his team walk in. And they said, we just want you all to know that we do not expect that Dorothy will survive the night. There's just been too much trauma. And then he said, I need to ask you if you want to sign a DNR. Do not resuscitate order. Dorothy and I had discussed just such an event, and we had both agreed that we would not try to keep the other alive if there was no hope. After discussing it with my daughters, I signed the DNR. something that I would live with for the rest of my life. Shortly after that, a group of people appeared at the door, and it was my coworkers from the laboratory, and they asked if they could come in and pray, and I said, of course. We circled her bed, we prayed and we prayed. After that, I heard the nurse kind of whisper to herself, oh, her vitals are coming up a little bit. A little later, she said it again, and this time she tells me, yes, your wife, I want to let you know her vitals are coming up, but I've often seen this happen shortly before the patient passes. So again, here we are on that pendulum, hopeful and then devastated. Again, later on in the morning, she says, there is something different is happening here. I'm going to call the doctor. About an hour later, he arrives and he says, on the way here, I talked to some doctors from the Maine Methodist in a very specialized ICU unit called the ECMO unit, where people in my wife's situation are placed, and it's the extreme last ditch effort to save them. On the next part, we'll talk about what happened in there and how the miracle continued. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you listening to her story. I will be uploading the last part of this story next Sunday. We'll see you then.